What's up, everyone? Trey. And then we got Norman from Griever here. And I'm super pumped for this because we've been trying to do it for a while now.
I know, just our schedules would not line up.
Yeah, it's crazy. But when I was doing, we'll just jump right into it. When I was doing all my research, I had no idea how ridiculously, talented you are in pretty much everything. You play drums.
Yes.
Do vocals. Play piano.
Yes.
Guitar, bass.
I do, and I appreciate that you think I'm talented. I just enjoy doing all of those things.
Yeah, that's nuts, man.
Happen to not be terrible at them.
Yeah.
So it worked out.
Yeah, let's see, because you wrote it all down. So, Cherry at the Moon. Because it's funny, because I thought I was just going to be doing Griever, so I was going, through all the Griever stuff, and then I saw everything else. So you do drums and that?
I did drums, and I wrote songs and recorded guitar on, and
bass.
And bass, yeah. I recorded the bass for the full length.
Damn. And then you did, when we had Yugen on here, I saw that you did drums for them for a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny. That was a long time ago. It was before Yugen was actually a band, and they had found other members. I was the original drummer, and I realized that this isn't really what I want to do.
Yeah.
The style of music, playing drums, and then that's when they found Matt, who was a much more perfect fit.
That's cool. And then we got, you filled in bass for Human Condition on
the Warped Tour show.
Yeah, on the show. And then you filled in on drums for Tell the Wolves I'm Home.
I did.
And then you played with Abyss Walker on their last show too.
Yeah, I actually was in that band for a little bit.
Oh, you were in that one?
I played drums.
Jacob was in.
Yes, he was.
In that as well, yeah.
And then I filled in on guitar for Abyss Walker on their last shows.
Nice. And then a lot of stuff with Sam.
Yes.
Because you guys had your whole compilation of rap metal.
Yeah, that was actually funny because I'd always seen that he did different covers, and I had asked him, do you ever need a studio guitarist? Just let me know. And it evolved into me coming in and telling me what songs he wanted, and then I got full reign over writing the songs, and then him laying out the vocals over the top of it. And so that's what that turned into. And then I don't know if you saw any of his recent posts about Integrum Digital, which is a studio.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's a studio, and I'm on as his guitarist and writer and composer for that too.
Yeah, I saw that. That's dope. And then you do vocals with Hard Reset.
So currently I write the music and I do vocals. So all the music up to this point has all been written by me, including the next EP that's being released. But moving forward, I think we're going to make it a more collaborative effort. But yeah, all intents and purposes, yes, I do vocals for that band.
And then one of my favorite things was when you did the album art for all the local bands and the Griever font. I thought that was cool. Oh
yeah, that's funny because I was at work and I was bored.
Yeah.
So what would be funny is if I just made every band with the Griever logo.
Yeah.
And so that's funny that you remember that.
Yeah. And then okay, so I just wanted to cover just so everybody knew how much ridiculous stuff you do, but mainly here for Griever because we're both huge Final Fantasy fans, and so Griever is Griever from Final Fantasy VIII.
Yes.
And then I love how it's such a good idea. Where did the I come from?
Okay, so when I was first coming up with names for the band, I used to have a band called Existence from early 2011, 10 to 12, and so I knew I couldn't use that name anymore because it was some of the material was from that band, and I'd always loved that name. And so I decided that if I'm going to have a name that I love just as much, I'm going to have to pull it from my favorite Final Fantasy game. So I chose Griever to begin with, and then I looked, and I did a Google search, and I looked, and there's another band called Griever. And at first, I was like, you know what, maybe I don't need to use this name, but then I was like, nope, I'm Griever.
Yeah.
Griever, and that's where that sort of stems from.
Yeah, I thought it was such a cool idea, because then when you do a Google search, it's still retaining, people will catch the Final Fantasy reference, but then you don't have to go through, Final Fantasy VIII when they Google search that, or other bands name that or anything.
Right.
It's a cool way to, SEO wise.
Yeah, I mean, so it's definitely narcissistic, but I figured that it was unique enough that no one else was going to have that name.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And so Griever started in 2016?
Yes, officially. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and then the first song snippet that you released was from the Rebirth of Existence, which is just this huge song. Like, what is it, 14 and a half minutes?
Yeah, that one was a long song. Rebirth of Existence was actually a redone and a reimagined version of an old Existence song.
Oh,
like
yeah,
I had
hell
prior
yeah.
mentioned, and I think up to about 2 or 3 minutes was all new material, and then I kind of threw the back end with that old song and kind of revisited that over and over again.
Did you plan that, like, or did you just start writing and you're like, this would fit in with?
Yeah, no, it was never planned. I just started writing, and then all of a sudden it made sense from, I guess, I cadenced a chord in the song that started this synth as a weird, like, circusy kind of synth.
Yeah.
And then it went into this clean guitar part, and that's where that all started over again. That's kind of where I got the idea to merge the two together.
Yeah, that's dope. And just kind of going through, because I saw that you played with Polyphia twice, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So that was when they were, like, coming up, or were they already pretty, like, was it a solid crowd?
Yeah, both times we played with Polyphia were solid crowds. I'm not too familiar with Polyphia's work, but I think that the album Renaissance, I think that's the album that had come out prior to us playing with them. Our second show was with Polyphia at Rocketown, because we had played our first show in the Flex room, if you remember that room. And then our second show was with Polyphia, and then I think a year later, almost exactly a year later, we played with Polyphia again, but at Rocketown with, I cannot remember their name. Their drummer's name is Spencer, and he plays in Inferi. I don't know why I can't think of the name of their band, because they're such nice guys, but yes, we played with Polyphia twice.
Yeah, that's dope. And Trigger was on the second one. Yeah.
Then that means we played with them. We played with them twice, yeah, because we played with Trigger at the end with Polyphia.
Yeah, that's dope. I feel like that would be a crazy cool, just like an instrumental show, like with having you and Trigger and everything.
I know. I remember I even made a joke when we were playing, because I said, now for another band with no drummer.
Yeah.
Because it was so interesting that when I had met Michael from Trigger, that he also was going to play with no drummer, no bass, because that was the whole idea. I was just so tired of trying to play with bands that I was just going to do it all myself.
Yeah.
And it was so funny to run into another person that was doing that.
Yeah. Man, what's that like, playing alone? I feel like the nerves have to be way more than... Because when you have a band, you kind of have people masking. You're probably way better than me. I mean, you are, but, like, it's just like when you have, like, the band, it kind of, if you screw up, like, it kind of masks it, you know? But, like, when you're alone, it's everybody's focused on you.
Yeah, it's... Luckily for me, I've never really been a nervous performer. I think I just get so caught up in doing what I'm doing that I kind of forget that they're there.
Yeah.
And I'm just so focused on what I'm playing. But you're absolutely right. It's more important for me to be on point with what I'm doing, because tracks aren't going to mess up.
Yeah.
They're not going to hit a wrong note, or the drums are going to mess up. So I definitely have to be playing all the notes, because at first, before I had the other guitarist with me, I would play with backing guitar tracks. So if I messed up on a note, you're definitely going to hear it. So I definitely had to have everything I was doing precise and accurate, and practiced all my songs as much as possible.
For sure. That just seems crazy to me. But yeah, and so Shane, he joined, was it in 2016, like late 2016?
Yes, he was actually the other guitarist in existence.
Yeah, because I saw something where because you lived with him and BJ.
I did.
Yeah.
Did you know BJ and Shane?
Well, like, I met Shane when came to your guys' show the first time I saw you, and then Eugen was our first show that we played with. So I met BJ then, and, like, he always talked about you guys before I saw you, everything. He was like, oh, you'd like, because, you know, I told him about Final Fantasy and everything, and it's like, oh, you gotta hook up with Norman.
That's awesome. Yeah, so Shane, BJ, and I did all live together at one point. Actually, BJ was the vocalist of Existence at one point.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so, but Shane, he joined, because at first I told him it'd be a lot of fun just to play together. Do you want to come and just fill in live shows for me? Because not saying that I'm by any means the best guitarist, but I do write a lot of complicated stuff and a lot of complicated rhythms. And he was the only other guitarist I knew at that point that could match me. We could sit down and he could learn an entire I, Griever song in one sitting. And then I could come back and we can play it together.
Dang.
So it just worked out really well. And he's also into Final Fantasy and video games, so that we connected really hard early on in our friendship, and that's kind of what brought him back into I, Griever.
Yeah, that's nuts. And then kind of going into, I guess, the influence. I don't know how you say it. I always say Nobuo Uematsu.
That's how I say it, yes.
Hell yeah. Cool. I know everybody, like my brother says it different and everything, but kind of like that guy's just a genius. And you got to meet him. Like, you got a picture with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where was it at, like the Distant Worlds, or?
Yeah, so that it was in Kansas City, Missouri, and I saw that he was playing and that he was going to be in attendance, and I bought the ticket.
Yeah.
Having no idea how I was going to get there. I didn't plan to go there. I didn't plan to stay. I didn't have anything planned. I just knew a couple months prior that I had the money to drop on this ticket. And so I eventually, when it came back around to it, I drove to Missouri, and it was about an 8-hour drive there and 8 hours back. So I drove there, saw the symphony, met him. Wasn't really much of a meeting.
Right, yeah.
He signed some stuff and said hello. You know, definitely not what I wanted from someone who inspired me for the last 20 years. And got a picture, you know, felt unfulfilled, and then drove 8 hours home.
Yeah.
But yes, I did get to meet him, which was one of the coolest moments, I will say, in my life.
You do such a great job at taking the influence and doing your own thing with it. Like, that was the first thing that, because Tranquil Garden was my first song that I heard, and like just the piano in the beginning, like I was like, whoa, it's like, it's got that vibe. And what sound, like, how do you make all those sounds?
Well, first, I am humbled and extremely flattered that you just even knew the song title enough to tell me it. So thank you for listening, because even one person means a lot. But that song specifically, I had written it on guitar, and then when I played it on piano, it sounded like Journey to me. And so I was like, because I love Journey, that's my all-time favorite band. And so, but those sounds specifically, do you mean like the DAW or the plugins that I get, or?
Yeah, like just like the plugins, because I feel like, I don't know, just all of your sounds are so, just very reminiscent of the style, you know, exactly what you're going for. I mean, you do such an awesome job at creating, and I feel like I've tried and failed multiple times. So yeah, just like the plugins that you use.
So when it comes to the plugins that I used for the very first I, Griever record, or the first one, so I used FL Studio for all of that.
Really?
And so I used a lot of the built-in plugins, because it was a really strange way that I did I, Griever 1, is I had to do all the drums and the plugins in FL Studio, so the drums were just terrible. And then so I did DIs of the guitar tracks in Logic. I transitioned from FL Studio and Audacity into using Logic, and I only had Logic a couple of months prior to doing that first album. So I got all the drums and the synths from there, and I think I might have used a few synths from Logic, but post the first I, Griever record, I started using Logic. That's where I get all my sounds from currently, and I just got a plugin called Omnisphere, which is one of the craziest plugins I've ever used. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it has these banks, and one's called Retroland, and I'm about to go crazy with it for the next piece of music that I write for I, Griever, because it's giving me all the sounds that I've been looking for. But I find that when you say that I'm tapping into these sounds that very reminiscent of video games or Final Fantasy in general, is that I find these sounds that don't sound like they would normally belong somewhere. Someone would hear that sound and say, I don't know if that fits.
What would you use that in?
Yeah, but if I hear it, I'm going to find a place for it.
Yeah.
Because to me, every sound is unique. And I like to find plugins that sound so weird that I find a place for it to work.
Damn, that's cool. I'll have to start trying to do that. Because, yeah, it's funny because I have, like, the whole Contact suite, you know, and I'll just listen to things. I'm like, what would you even use this on? You know, but that's cool. Like, I'm going to find a place to use this sound.
Yeah. Or I'll write a riff and I will MIDI it out, and then I'll just listen to it over the riff, and I'll just listen to every single one of them. And a lot of the times individually they may not sound like they belong, but if you listen to just the way the note hits or the way the phrasing of the guitar, and you listen to it with the MIDI as each one goes, or if you combine two MIDIs, you find two that you like, maybe you like the airy sound of one, or you like the percussive sound of the other, and then you blend them and then put them on top of the riff, then you get this unique sound.
Yeah.
So that's another way I do it as well.
Do you have, like, theory knowledge?
I have very basic theory knowledge to the point where I can play piano and I know my notes. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to, if you want to talk about modes or...
Yeah. So just like, songwriting's just... Like, when you do it, you're not thinking of, okay, well, I'm in this key and I need to do like this. It's just very... Because it's like you said, it is very complex, you know?
Well, so one thing I've always been against, especially with Griever, things like Hard Reset, we have a strong song structure. Very, very simple. Sometimes we have verses, breakdowns, things like that. But with Griever, it's always been what's felt good. It's always been the movement. So what key never mattered. It's never going to matter what key I'm in, because I'm not going to play in that key again, more than likely.
Right.
So it's all about what feels good right then. And a lot of my riffs will start with me just doing something stupid that sounds awful. And it doesn't make any sense. Nobuo used a lot of chromatic notes.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I took away from him that I love so much, are chromatic notes. And one of his biggest influence was Elton John. And Elton John played a lot of blues and jazz. Yeah. And so I can only assume that's where he pulled from. And then all my chromatics come from him. So when it comes to writing riffs and things of that nature, it would always be something starting that sounds just so silly, like you wouldn't normally do. Yeah. Like, you don't want to start a riff that you've already done before. You just want to do something silly, and then that bursts this entire riff that might build a song.
Man.
So.
Yeah, that's dope. And then I thought a really cool thing, Nick Cross put vocals on one of your songs, the Burning Building. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was that like hearing?
I was just flattered.
Yeah, I was just somebody doing it out of the blue just because they're like, this song's dope.
I was just beside myself. I said, you took the time to put vocals over a 7-minute song with no structure. Like, you have to go piece by piece, by movement by movement. That being said, there's a repeating part in that song. I just thought that part sounded so cool, I had to do it again. Because I'm sure when you write music, there's like a section of your song you're just in love with.
Right,
you're like,
yeah.
I love this part of the song. And he sent that to me, and I just thought it was so cool. And it was funny because he was with Grant Robinson, if you know who that is. He plays bass in a band called Oblique, and he plays bass in a band called Widowmaker. And he used to be in Chariot the Moon. And he was actually going to do vocals over it. And he told Nick, he said, I can't do it. This is too technical. I can't do it. It's too complicated.
Yeah.
But when Nick did it, I just thought it was so cool.
Yeah, it was just interesting to hear, you know, because especially when just everything else is instrumental, and then just hearing somebody do that, I thought that was a cool thing that somebody did. But that's just kind of just everybody you know, and I thought that was probably the most interesting thing when I was going through and like researching. Is just you're such an integral part of Nashville's like music scene. I thought that was just really cool, like just how you connect with, you do so much around here, and it's just, I mean, I've only been here for a little bit, and our playing live shows has been very small, and so it was just like cool to see, you know, like Eugen's always talked really highly of you, and then, you know, I love just all the Final Fantasy influence, but like really seeing everything and like just doing stuff with other musicians is really cool.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate it. If anyone even takes the time to say a good word about what I enjoy doing, it's I really don't have words because I don't see what I do as that big of a deal because I love doing it. I would do it if no one heard it.
Right.
And when you put those, all the things that I've done into a list, I've never even thought about it like that.
Yeah, right.
I just did it because my friends needed help and I could do it. And I love playing drums and I love helping my friends and I love playing music so much that I've never tallied up what I've done, that I just do it because it's literally the only reason I feel like I have the purpose for my existence. So it's really cool when people say nice things. It's really, I don't have words.
And yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it really, from an outside perspective, like it is really cool. And so I wanted to talk about the EP that you released, and that was this year, February of this year. Yeah. I thought it was super cool how you did the Heavens, and then Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, and then the Abyss. And I just really wanted to dive into Zone 3 because I think that song, that's probably my favorite song that I listen to. To me, it's probably not how you meant it at all, but there's so many like style changes, and mainly I fell in love. It was at 2 minutes it gets super groovy, and then it goes into this little arpeggio that's really reminiscent of like Genova, and so that's like what hooked me at first. And then as I listened, the style changes and how, because you change, you know, it's progressive music and everything, but to me it was kind of like you're getting to the end of a video game, and I thought of it as like a character flashing back through through the whole story. And you know, I don't really know how to explain it, but I just think it's super awesome because of the style changes. It's like they came back to a part in the beginning, or like something that happened in the very beginning of a journey, and then like here's the middle, and just like showing the different like moods and feelings. And that's just like what I took from it, and I just thought it was incredible.
Well, thank you. Zone 3 is actually happens to be my favorite off the EP as well. So I've never actually written it into words, but I, Griever is an entire story. So starting from 1 to 2 to 3, or to not 3, but to From the Heavens to the Abyss, which is actually a segue into 3. So I thought I'd release a small EP and then segue into 3.
Are you gonna release on October 3rd?
Like the previous two? See, that was so funny because I was actually going to try to release them all on October 3rd, but I didn't get around to it that year. But all of the parts that you were mentioning in Zone 3, because what it was doing was that EP was detailing the dissension. He basically, the main character killed himself. So that's what Expiration of Existence leading into Epilogue Alone in the Universe is about, is him making a decision if to kill himself or to start over again, which it's so convoluted that it's just to sum it up, just to kind of leave you on a cliffhanger, it's him wanting to kill himself, or on I, Griever 2, it looks like a platform with a door, a portal. Yeah. He's standing at this door, and he can either kill himself or walk through the door. That's what that platform is for. And he steps off, and that's where he goes into the abyss. Or the Heavens is kind of his dissension, and then Zone 1 through Zone 3 is him. And he's pretty much having flashbacks and reminiscing about his life and the choices he made, and going through all these feelings through these different zones. So Void of Nothingness was where he finally accepted that that's where he was going, and kind of was movements through his thought processes. So I'm glad you picked up on that, because that's what that entire movement or that piece was for. Yeah, and I love, I would call it like rock and roll, like old rockabilly, kind of, just that whole little section. I thought that was, I don't know, you just do such an awesome job. It's just really cool to hear the wide range of influence. You know, it's like you can hear the metal, the prog. There's like a swing section in there, and it's really cool to hear it all kind of put together. And
opportunity ever arose, would you ever make like a game based off of your music? I know that's a crazy
dream.
Yeah.
Would I make a game based
like
on
like with your story, you know, that you have, and kind of flesh it out, or, you know, put it into visual form, I guess, in any way?
See, that's where the conflict or the paradox would arise, because as much as I would love it to be visualized or put into a video game, I have always told myself I will never put a visual representation of the story out. And the reason why is it's like when you read books. When you read books, you're ingesting this information, you're dissecting it, and you create what the characters look like in your mind. You create the story, you create the landscape, and it makes it more personal for you. So if I tell you what it's supposed to look like, then it's not personal anymore. So when you listen to this music, what you hear in Zone 3 is exactly what I wanted you to interpret it as. So if I'm supposed to tell you what it's supposed to sound like, then you're not going to get your personal experience from it. But for it to be put into a game, that would be something I'd have to really think on, because if someone came to me and said, I want to make your story into a video game, I would say, okay. But it would probably look a lot like Final Fantasy. Just not going to lie. It would,
for sure.
It would take that retro side of it. It would take all the pieces of what I feel like the Final Fantasy games are missing now and return them back to where I fell in love with them.
That's a awesome segue into... I mean, is there anything else that I haven't really covered with Griever that, you know, anything like big that I missed or anything? Because I definitely want to get into our talk of like Final Fantasy and everything.
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Because it's just incredible. It really is a cool, just brainchild, you know.
Yeah, and I couldn't think of a genre for my music. And so I had coined the term progressive video game metal. Is the best thing I could come up with for it. And I think even the more I had moved from this third release, is starting to even sound more like video games than the prior ones. And I think I want to move in that direction, because it's still progressive, like you said, the swing. And then the big band, that was actually Frank Sinatra influenced, because he has so many good songs, and I want to play every genre of music. Everything I hear is so unique, every sound, every instrument. I want to play every style, but how do I make that happen is where Griever comes from.
It's the best way to do it too, because you instead of people, I don't know, you know how with genres of music people are a lot more critical, but in this kind of genre, you're just it's telling the story. I don't know, I feel like it's a really awesome way to incorporate all of those influences into a single song if you wanted to. You know, whereas I feel like with a band, or, you know, like the kind of music we would do, it would be really hard to pull off, you know. I mean, I couldn't pull it off anyway, even if I was doing it like that, but you know what I mean, like.
And I will say it's a lot easier not having a band, because I don't have to listen to opinions, or I don't have to take criticism, and it's so great because all the music I write is for me. And I enjoy listening to it, or I love it, and that's why I do it. So that's touching back on song structure and bands having these normal ways they write songs. It's why I don't ever write them in a normal structured fashion, or each song doesn't sound like the next one, because I want it to be its own musical movement or its own journey when you're listening to it. Especially my longer compositions, I tried to shorten them on this EP. So we had that 110-minute, which is Zone 3. I tried to shorten them a little, but it gets to the point where I can't stop a song until it feels done. And that's when I end it.
I just can't even imagine the process for all that, but it's really cool. I did want to ask, because I know you covered a lot of cool, like, Final Fantasy VII boss battle theme. So that was the first time I saw you guys play that, and I was just, you know.
Because I remember meeting you and then hearing a lot about you guys, and that you liked Final Fantasy, and I was thinking, well, this is perfect because I get to play this boss theme live. I had this prepared, so. It was super. I've never heard that live or anybody perform it, actually, so it was just super epic. But and then you did Sonic. You covered Sonic 2, the boss theme.
For that. And so I was wondering if the EP was like influenced by Sonic. I don't know. I thought of Zones as, you know, like Sonic 2.
Absolutely, it was. Metropolis Machine Zone from the very first one was absolutely was influenced by Sonic, because I always loved the titles to the levels, and I was thinking, well, because it even sounds 8-bit, or it sounds very retro, the start of that song. And I just thought Metropolis Machine Zone was a cool song name because it tied into the whole story anyways. So yes, Sonic influenced.
And then I saw your Friday the 13th, like, NES little retro cover you did too.
That's my second favorite game on Nintendo.
Yeah, I've never played it. I didn't even know they had a Friday the 13th. I know they're coming out with like a new one, but I didn't know they had an NES one.
Oh, it's fun if you like it.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it's really hard for other people, and luckily I even made a tutorial video on YouTube once because I was trying to beat this game and I could not figure out the fastest way to get this weapon, and that's how I actually fell in love with the game. And I think aside from Final Fantasy, that is my favorite one. And in the game, there are a total of only 4 songs because they just repeat. It's Nintendo, you know, and so that's why I did that song, and I had actually planned on doing the other 3 as well, but that's funny.
Yeah, that's cool. But all right, let's do it. Final Fantasy, because this is what I've been aching for. All right, so I guess the difference between us with Final Fantasy is I do play like the new ones and everything too, and I know you stop pretty much at 9.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you give My goal by the end of this is for you to be like, I might give Final Fantasy X a chance.
Well, you're on a long list of people then, because I can already think of 2 that have been. One actually lent me the game, and it's still sitting in my house somewhere. Well, the reason, so Final Fantasy X has Squaresoft on the case, but I don't feel like it's a real Squaresoft game. To me, when I actually gave Final Fantasy X a try, it was like Kingdom Hearts, but Final Fantasy with a Final Fantasy label, and I'm not really into the dialogue. I couldn't get into the voiceovers and then how they try to modernize it with the music, certain aspects of the music, and then I guess the display of the characters to me was off-putting, and I thought it took a lot away from the traditional style of the game. And that might be me being a snob about it.
No, I mean, that totally makes sense, especially when you talk about, you know, with your music and you want people to... It's like, because with the old ones, you have to kind of create their voice and who they are and fill in, you know, even though the PS1 games had a little bit better graphics, but you still kind of got to fill in, like, you know, what they looked like and how they sounded and everything. So I get that for sure.
And character development, in my opinion, when you do it so personally, I think gives you a level of attachment to the game, such as I got a much more personal development from playing Final Fantasy VIII. So I think with the dialogue and then everything that it changed into, and it wasn't the traditional form of the game for me, it was kind of like it was okay to stop there and then just live back here. So I don't hate on anyone for wanting to play these newer games. I just know where I should draw the line.
Right. Yeah. To hold your love of the franchise. Because I get that. I remember when Final Fantasy 12 came out, and that was the first one where it really deviated from turn-based, which I'm still all for turn-based. And I was very cynical about it. But I actually just replayed it, and it's a good Star Wars game. But and then 13, you know, it's super linear. But 10, I guess for me, 10 was my favorite because it was my first one. So that's probably why.
That was Shane's first one too. That's his favorite. Yeah,
I think it's just, especially I was 7 years old and I got into Final Fantasy because my uncle and my brother loved it, you know, and I beat that game before they did, and so it was just like this, you know, very nostalgic thing too.
I was 7 when I played Final Fantasy 7. It came out that year for the first time.
Oh, really?
That was the very first one I played.
Man, I feel like that one's harder. Did you beat it like when you were 7, or did it take a couple of years to...
I beat it when I was 7. But it definitely was difficult. It taught me a lot of my reading comprehension.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
it definitely enhanced my vocabulary and my understanding of language and the way people
Yeah.
talked, even Barrett's dialogue and his dialect, and it was sort of strange, and I didn't understand why it was written the way it was. It was supposed to be a display of his character or a portrayal. And in 7, at the very beginning, when you go into the reactor, the scorpion that you fight, you know what I'm referring to. So they say they have a dialogue box that pops up and it says, attack when its tail's up, it'll counterattack with his laser. And the way it's written out makes it sound like you should attack.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, I'm this 7-year-old kid getting destroyed by this laser, and I'm like, why does it keep hitting me every time? Why is it killing me? But the way it's set up is it's saying if you attack with his tail up, he'll counterattack with his laser.
And translation errors.
Yeah, so that was my first encounter of it being difficult when I was 7. But from there on out, it was just it's an immersive story that I just got sucked into.
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember my first time with Final Fantasy 7. That was the one I played after 10, because that was my brother's favorite. So I got into that, and he kind of showed me the materia system, and I swear I didn't truly learn the materia system until I was like 14, like how to pair everything, and because you can do crazy combinations with it.
Oh yeah, I steered a little bit away from materia because I never really used the summons or the magic until I got strong enough to do all just normal attacks, because my favorite thing was just attacking and then you wiping them out, especially when you get the 2 times cut materia and then you level up to 4 times and then you give it to everyone, then you pretty much demolish everything at that point.
Yeah, and so that's really interesting that 7 was your first one, but 8's your favorite.
I actually played 8 after I played 9.
Really?
Yeah, my 9 came out, and I remember telling my mom that I wanted this game. We were not well off at all when we were kids, so expecting to get a video game for Christmas was it was a little disappointing. But she had that Christmas, she actually went and got me 9, and she got me the strategy guide, and I still have both from when I was a kid. I have all my Final Fantasies from when I was a kid. And so after I got that, I went to a store called Great Escape here in Nashville when I was, I think, 9 or 10. I think I was 10, and I picked up Final Fantasy 8. And that was the first time I ever got to play it.
Man. So what got you into Final Fantasy? How did you get Final Fantasy 7?
So I used to go to my grandmother's house, and my cousin lived there. He was 18, or he was an adult in his 20s, I'm not sure, but my cousin lived there. And he had a PlayStation. And I used to go over there to play his PlayStation. He had random games. I think it was like Road Rash. I don't know if you're familiar with that game. It was like a motorcycle game. And he had Final Fantasy. And I remember sitting down and just like bobbing the disc in or watching him play. And then I started playing it. And then I would go over there constantly just to play this game. And eventually my grandmother got so fed up with me coming over there to play the game and not spend time with her that she just bought it from him and gave it to me.
Heck yeah.
And so that's how I got into Final Fantasy, was doing it that way.
That's awesome. Yeah. So how do you feel about the draw system?
Oh, I think the draw system's awesome.
I agree.
Because you can draw, early on in the game, you can draw 100 cures or 100 Asunas and put them on your health, and you just maxed out the majority of your health. I thought it was an excellent system.
Yeah.
Because I hear a lot of people don't really care for it, but I thought the draw system and the junction system were amazing.
Yeah, I loved it. And I think it's just like the grind, but I love the grind. Like, I love sitting there and just in battle, like that's my favorite thing. And I loved like how it kind of didn't want you to level up your characters. It wanted you to focus on drawing, because if you scaled up your levels, then the enemies become stronger. Like, even if you're like by the garden, but if you're in Balam and you get to like level 100, that means the rest of the game, like every enemy's going to be that, like stronger.
Right. Yeah, they level up with you.
Yeah.
And even what's just as interesting enough is that some enemies don't carry certain items after certain levels anymore.
Yeah.
So during the Lionheart quest, if you want to get early on in the game, I think past level 20, there's these things called Wendels. And they're these monsters that you can fight and you can get a specific item, but if they're past a certain level, when you get to them, they won't drop that item anymore, which is essential to getting Lionheart. So I always thought that part of the game was really interesting, that the monsters leveled up with you as well.
Yeah. And like every level is just 1,000 XP.
Yes.
Like, yeah, it was really interesting. I remember the first time I played 8, I was very confused. Because, you're just used to the other system and everything.
And getting experience from fighting bosses.
Yeah.
You got from 7, which is something you didn't get in 9, which was so weird for me, that you didn't get experience, but you got AP.
Right.
So, yeah, but 7, I just thought the story was perfect, and the gameplay was perfect, and instead of having your characters go into your body, they ran behind you this time.
Yeah.
So I always thought that was cool.
So you have to be a little bit curious about the remake
Of 7?
Yeah.
I'm absolutely not.
No, not at all.
At all. No.
Even did you watch Advent Children?
Advent Children?
Yeah.
Yes. I thought it was a cool movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, I used to have it on DVD and I used to watch it, and it was nice having then at that point in time kind of what's going on now feeling for after the game, because all you see is Meteor coming into contact with the life stream, and then the end of the game is Ares, and then you kind of leave so many loose ends or just wondering what happened at that point. So it's kind of cool having the know of what was supposed to come after it, but other than that, I didn't really.
Yeah, it was better than Spirits Within.
Yes,
for sure. But man, I guess I totally get your perspective of wanting to. These are your characters, and they are who you created them to be, but I'm super excited they're expanding Midgar and everything. They actually put turn-based in the game, which I was happy. So have you watched any trailers or anything?
Nope.
Really? Nothing?
No.
Man.
I am just not interested, and it's not that I don't love Final Fantasy, I just love my version of Final Fantasy.
Right.
And I am happy that everyone, including yourself or other people that are going to play these games, are getting something that they may enjoy. But I always want to hold on to, because it's not necessarily that I'm not progressing with myself. It's quite the opposite. I just feel so content in what I already have that I'd rather not taint it at all with something new. Because for a lot of people, this is going to be their very first time with Final Fantasy. Yeah. So they're not going to experience it the same way you and I did. And I kind of want to leave that for them.
Right.
You have this, it's almost like a lineage, or passing on something to someone else. You know what? I've lived a great life. You take this.
Yeah, have at it. I always wonder that, if I have kids and stuff, I feel like I just want them to play the ones that I grew up on. I was like, but that's not fair, because they have to have their, they'll have their things when they're in their 20s. Well, they'll be nostalgic for, Final Fantasy 16 or something, like that, rather than 9 or 10.
You can tell them, I remember when they didn't have voices.
Yeah, right.
Sitting on your rocker. Yeah, back to, so they also, another thing that turned me off from the newer Final Fantasies is even in the remake, they did stuff to make the games easier for people, as if they're catering to this instant gratification world.
True.
And I just thought it was such that's why I wanted to wash my hands instead of just bad mouthing or being negative towards it. I just want to say, it's not, none of this is for me, and I don't want to be negative or cast that shadow on something that people may enjoy. Because a buddy of mine, Columbus, he didn't really enjoy 7, and I told him, you should go back and play it, it's really, really good. And he ended up loving it. But something he did was he told me there's this feature called 3 times speed, and I thought to myself, that just sounds awful. That just takes away the experience and the patience that it took to grind to get certain levels. Like you were talking about, the grind is you could sometimes spend an entire day just grinding to level up. Yeah. And I feel like that took it away, because you're just trying to rush through the story. You're trying to get to the end when the whole reason for Final Fantasy was to enjoy every segment, every section.
All the side quests and
the side quests are my favorite part.
Yeah.
So,
I love becoming overpowered. That's my favorite thing about Final Fantasy, honestly. Is just getting to where, and then all the super bosses and everything, and like once you can beat the super bosses, you just feel so good. Like there's
the weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah, the weapons were my favorite part. I think they were a lot easier in 8 because you could use Holy Wars.
Yeah.
And you could use Aura to automatically get your limit break. But unfortunately for Squall, he doesn't really cast Lionheart unless he's low on HP.
Yeah.
But in 7, those weapons, you had to be a little more strategic, in my experience.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you beat the weapons in 7?
In 7, there was... Man, when I was 14, I went through and replayed it again. I replayed them all when I was like 14 to 17. And I just remember it's a Ruby weapon was the worst experience for me. Like I just get triggered thinking about it. I remember sitting there for so long and I couldn't figure out, I just Knights of the Round, man. That was kind of. I know you said you didn't really use summon.
Well, it was Phoenix and Knights of the Round was the only one I used because I would have to use them for the weapons.
Yeah.
So if you were to look at my materia slots, if you were to go through all my summons, none of them would be used until you get to Phoenix or Knights of the Round. Well, I would sometimes just use them because I thought they looked cool.
Yeah.
Like
Knights of the Round was so cool.
Bahamut, however you pronounce it.
I always say Bahamut. Yeah.
I say Bahamut.
How do you say so Shiva and
Ifrit?
I say Ifrit too, yeah.
See, it's even weird. I don't know if you've ever done this, but when you're talking about Final Fantasy, you say some of the words out loud that you would say in your head and they sound weird.
Right.
Like certain names like Nibelheim. I've never really had to say that out loud, or it could be Nibelheim.
Yeah, I say Nibelheim.
I always thought it was Tifa, but I guess it's Tifa.
Oh, weird. Yeah, I've always said Tifa.
I've always said Tifa.
That's gotta drive you nuts. That's how I am with Final Fantasy X, because they don't say his name, because you can rename him, you know? So I've always said Titus. I named my dog Titus and everything, and then they came out and said his name was Titus, and I can't... But we both agree it's Aerith, right?
Always said it, it's Aerith. So, even then people say it's Aerith.
Yeah.
Or Ares.
Yeah.
I always said it was... I mean, when I was a kid, I always said Ares, but now I say Aerith because it just makes more sense.
You have a guitar named Aerith, right?
Yes, that pink and blue one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that, and I was like, okay. Because I know some people it's Aerith, because I get that it really is, in Japan, but it's like, I'm sorry that I played the game where her name was Aerith. I can't, just change it.
Right.
Because that's how it is.
I never even changed their names in the game either. I was never that person that would change the name of the characters.
Yeah.
With exception of Final Fantasy on Nintendo, because they didn't have any names, and you could only use 4 letters per person. So eventually, I think, did you ever play the original Final Fantasy on Nintendo?
Fantasy 1?
On Nintendo?
On Nintendo, no. I had it on my phone because I downloaded it.
Oh, the remake, kind of like they had on when they did Origins, where it was 1 and 2 for PlayStation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had 5 and 6 on. I can't remember what they called it. Final Fantasy.
There was Anthology.
Anthology, that was it.
And then they did 4. Then they did 4 and Chrono Trigger, 5 and 6, and then they did 4 and Chrono Trigger.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
bundled together.
Because it was the first one was Origins, and then was it Anthology was 5 and 6, and then they had 4 and Chrono Trigger, which I am really embarrassed and disappointed. I can't think of what that's called, but it was something like that, where they bundled those 2 together. I don't know if you've ever played Chrono Trigger.
Oh yeah,
it's such a good game.
Oh yeah,
it's an incredible game. Squaresoft was, I think, perfect.
Yeah,
I think that's it was just
so good
when they merged and they did Square Enix. And that's where it lost me, because Squaresoft was perfect.
And it's still there. Like, I am still, the storylines were, I feel like that's what they're really missing, because it is story for me as well. Like, gameplay is great and all, but if it's got an amazing story, I think that's why I do love 10, because the story is really good. But that's kind of where, like, 15, man, I waited for that game for so long, and it was just, it could have been a good story, and they just screwed it up, you know. And so I agree, Squaresoft always had these incredible stories. And then I'm a huge Dragon Ball Z fan too.
Mm-hmm.
And Toriyama did, you know, like artwork for
Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I loved Dragon Ball Z growing up too. I think that was really the only anime I ever got into. And when I first played Chrono Trigger on Super Nintendo, because I had it on Super Nintendo, and I always thought he looks like Goku.
Yeah.
Their hair looks so similar. Yeah. And then, you know, getting older and seeing names kind of pieced it together for me. But
did you play Chrono Cross?
I have it. I haven't played it yet.
Yeah, it's really good too.
I also have. Do you have any of the original Final Fantasies in the cases?
I do, actually.
I have. So in 7, if you look in the booklet, there's an advertisement for this game called Saga Frontier.
Oh, really?
Never played it. It was a Squaresoft game. I saw it in the booklet, and I saw it at the store, a game store one day, and I picked it up. I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah.
But I just bought it because it was made by Squaresoft, and it was in that booklet, so it has to be good.
Yeah, right.
But I have the originals. I don't keep a lot of things. I'm a minimalist as a person. If I don't use it, I get rid of it. But I have this box of old video games, and it has all my Final Fantasy, my original Final Fantasy on Nintendo, and my strategy guides, and my 151 Pokemon cards, and a booklet all in order. Like, this is like my youth box,
yeah, right.
My childhood, all stuffed in a box that I'm going to take with me and be buried with because no one's getting it. But I think when you were talking about the stories and something that's missing, is it dying?
No. Scoot it over. Sorry.
Don't be. I think that not only the story, this era of modern gaming, which you can't really halt the progression of technology. So we live in a world where everyone has their phones on them. It's very rare to find someone who doesn't have a phone, let alone a smartphone.
Right.
And so kids, I don't know if I have the wrong perception, but I don't see kids that want to immerse themselves in a story, who want to take the time or the patience, like who want to spend 3 months on the Water Temple in Ocarina of Time, right. Who wants to turn their TV off because they can't save a Sonic game, and you have to come back and play it later. Yeah. I have a 12-year-old stepson, and I bought the PlayStation Classic, and it's not me being mean, I just don't want him touching my games because they're over 20 years old. I just don't trust you yet. So I got him the PlayStation Classic, and I got him to play Final Fantasy, and he's only picked it up one time since then. And it kind of shows me that there's no instant success from playing old RPGs. It's you have to take the time to earn that reward of the storyline, or the items that you have to farm, or these weapons you have to get from progressing through the story. And I think it's just a display of where modern gamers are at now.
Yeah, for sure, because everything's just... I have an 8-year-old brother, and I talked to my mom about this. I'm trying so hard to get him into Final Fantasy, and so I just went down there, and we tried to sit down and play Final Fantasy X, and just the walking around and the fights and everything, he could not stay focused, you know, and they want that 3 times speed, or, you know, to beat the game without... There was a game, he had like the Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition or something, but he skipped all of the
cutscenes,
the dialogue and everything.
Oh, okay.
And it's really interesting how they... I don't know what it is, but I mean, I totally agree. It's just the grind is very hard in my experience so far. And then, like, he's into Zelda, and he has Ocarina of Time, but he'll watch it on YouTube. Like, but he has the game, but he just watches it on YouTube.
That's something I've always found strange. The generation prior to us probably saw things we did and thought, you know, you're not doing them the right way, and so I have to keep that mentality. I have to keep that in mind that they have their own way of doing things, that it's not wrong, it's just not how I would do them. But yes, kids watching other kids do stuff. but not do it themselves.
I know, yeah.
Because I will have conversations with my 12-year-old stepson, and he'll like tell me a piece of the game, and I'll say yeah, and I'll be like, "Did you watch it on YouTube?" He's like, yeah, I watched it on YouTube. It's like, so you didn't play the game to get to this point. And speaking of Zelda, that was the first time, Breath of the Wild, the first time since Final Fantasy 9, so it's been over 15 years that I was so immersed in a game that I thought about it when I went to work.
Yeah,
and
that game was a masterpiece.
I thought so too. I would lay in bed with my girlfriend Sharon, and I'd wait for her to go to bed, and I'd pull the Switch up and start playing Breath of the Wild, and I just thought it was such an incredible game.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I've actually been immersed in a game since Final Fantasy IX came out. So you can imagine
it was crazy.
Years.
Like, just everything. I remember I would see something and I'd be like, I wonder if I can do this. And then you could. It was something stupid where there was a string hanging, and I shot it, and I was like, I wonder if, there was just something attached to it, and I was like, I wonder if I could actually fall down, if it's just, pass through. And I shot it and it fell down, and I was like, sold. Like, this is incredible. Anything that you want to do, like, it reacted exactly how you think it would react. And I haven't seen a game do that. I don't ever. Like, it seemed like such a... And they just announced Breath of the Wild 2, and I'm...
Oh, yeah. I remember, because I have a lot of friends that are really into video games and playing the newer games. I've never played Skyrim or Assassin's Creed, or they might be the same game and I wouldn't know. But I've never played any of these new games. And then finally to find a game that I could play was really exciting for me and for them, because we could talk about it. And being like this just secluded retro game recluse that I am. And so finding Breath of the Wild was amazing. And so I took that as an opportunity to relive being a child again. And how I did that, to me, it's one of my favorite accomplishments. But I beat that game, and I 100%ed everything, including the DLC, minus the Korok seeds. Those things, apparently there are over 700 or 800 of those. But I did everything there was to do in that game without using the internet.
Wow.
Once. So it took me a couple of months, but it was
crazy. It
felt so good to do it, because I thought, this is the first time I'm going to play a new video game that I'm really, really enjoying. And I want it to feel like I did when I was a kid. Yeah. When we couldn't just jump on the internet or pull up our phone. Oh gosh, this the shrine is terrible. And then so I would sit there and I had to really, really try hard or stretch my mind or move on to something else and come back to it later.
That's nuts, man. Props.
Thank you.
That's crazy.
So I'm gonna try, when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, I'm gonna try to do the exact same thing. And try no internet again, because it just makes me feel like I'm a kid again. So when I go to work, I'm thinking about it. How am I gonna beat the shrine? What am I missing?
I always I use strategy guides back in the day a lot too, and that's one thing that I really miss. Because they didn't do it for... Did I have one for 15? I know I had Type 0 with the strategy guide for that, but I don't think they did it for Final Fantasy 15. It was always my favorite thing to buy the game and the strategy guide. It was just something like we always did, and that was kind of like how I would 100% games when I was younger.
Right.
And everything. But now, you just go on the internet, but...
Sure. See, and I think there is a little bit of dignity to strategy guides. It's not someone telling you how to do it.
Yeah.
So you walk into a shrine and you look around. Well, how do you do this? And you pull up your phone and you're like, how do you do this shrine without even trying?
Right. I did do all the shrines without. That was kind of like my thing. Because I have, like, not that dedicated, but I do try to... I like thinking... and I love the puzzles and stuff. So with the shrines, I would be like, I'm going to do this. But when it came to side quests and stuff...
Trust me, there was a lot of impulse control.
Yeah.
Because I remember my very last few shrines, I'm just running around everywhere thinking, when is this alarm going to go off? I'm just running around the map. I cannot find this last shrine. And I'm near Farron Tower. And I remember just going off one day and be like, it's here. This is the last one. And it was, of course, an easy shrine because I missed it at the beginning. So it wasn't like this big built-up climactic shrine. But it was just a really, really good feeling to
That's
beat
crazy
that game
to
like
think
that.
of trying to find the shrines. Like, because with that, I was totally, like, I used the internet to find shrines and everything when there was some that I couldn't find. I don't even think I did all of them. But just when you're in the shrine, and like the puzzle section, like that's what I, would try not to do. But that's, man, it just goes back. I guess it all carries over though, you know what I mean? It's like when you do something, so like how you play games translates to, how you do music too, in a sense of just that because the music that you write seems kind of mind-boggling, but so does doing a game, 100%ing a game without, like, so I feel like things translate, and that's why, it's like you said, our parents probably think that we did a lot of things wrong, but that's why, like, with the new generation, and they'll, always find their way with something, but it's not going to be where they take the time to, even learning an instrument. I feel like we'll see, it'll be interesting to see how many kids learn an instrument,
right?
Because that takes time. It's hard.
Yeah, especially I think, just a little side note, that I think there might be, if people are going to learn an instrument, there's definitely going to be more guitarists than drummers now, because they can program drums. And what's the point of learning drums if I can just program the songs? And even now and I don't mean to say this in a condescending way, because I don't do it, but there are Guitar Pro writers. I don't know if that's how you write your music or not, but I write with my guitar in my hand, or I write playing piano. I think it really shows your limitations. It really shows what you feel is translated through your body and your feelings. Sure. But I know a lot of Guitar Pro writers who write music through Guitar Pro rather than the actual instrument themselves. Yeah. And so it's really interesting to see this progression of how music is for this next generation going forward. So I wonder if anyone's going to pick up instruments, because now you can
just do everything.
You can do guitar now with MIDI.
The vocalist to Meditator actually wrote his entire album like on Guitar Pro. I mean, he doesn't play guitar, so like that's really cool, that he did that. But I use it's like Guitar Pro. We use it to tab out the song after we finish it. When I was a kid, I definitely used that to write, because I didn't understand how to write music yet. But as I've gotten older, it's definitely, there is a difference, because if you write something, and then when I moved here, my other guitarist taught me how to record and stuff. So back then I didn't really know how to do it, but there is a different feel, because you can put different emotion in how you play compared to how it's going to sound on MIDI. Right. And so something that might sound like shit on, Tuck's guitar is going to sound good if you play it, and you won't know that unless you play it. So yeah, I believe that you have to play, your music to get the proper feel and everything.
And that
it's not
hating on anyone, because I would never demean or devalue the way someone represents their art, because I think if someone's writing music, it's beautiful that they're doing it to begin with. I know there are people that will write songs in Guitar Pro, and they might be extremely difficult, and then learn them after the fact, which is awesome if that's the way you do it. I just feel like I convey who I really am and what I can do with my instruments by playing an instrument. So I don't think I'm ever gonna write like that.
Yeah. So how do you keep track of like your songs, or do you go back and listen to relearn, like, if say you had a show coming up, you're like, we're gonna play this song?
Luckily for me, I've always been really good at retaining what I've written. So
all those songs,
so
like all the band, that's nuts, man.
So if I was to have to go back and play an Griever song from the first record, I could do it, because I don't know why I'm good at retaining information. I think that helped a lot with writing longer pieces, is being able to retain the information. And but sometimes I'll go back just to play through them.
That's nuts, because I'll go a couple months and be like, I don't even, and so like I said, that's why we use Tuck's guitar, like just to write it all. After we finish the song, we'll go back and tab it out, which is also terrible. Tabbing it out's terrible. But I actually was messing around. I wasn't messing around with it. I was going on YouTube because I was curious if there was guitar VSTs, like metal guitar VSTs. And I heard some really good ones, and it kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. How you can MIDI out guitar now, and can't think of the name because I use MIDI bass. And I'm not gonna lie, it makes my life a lot easier because recording bass and getting a good bass tone for my intents and purposes, being a small home studio and doing my own mixes is not easily accessible for me. But it's easier if I use the MIDI bass. So Griever, the newest EP, had MIDI bass on it. The prior two had real bass on it. But these new guitar tones, they sound crazy. I think what are they called? It's slipping my mind right now because it has I feel like it's has the name of a summon from Final Fantasy. I could be wrong about that though.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what we even use, and I can't think of it. Because I'll MIDI out bass when I'm like starting a song, and then we'll have our bassist come record it. And so we use something, and it sounds really good. Like it's not bad at all. So, but it is nuts. Like, and sometimes it's funny. Sometimes I'll find myself like programming more than I'm playing guitar. Like with stuff, and and I love like I try to write orchestral pieces and stuff, which is all stemming from Final Fantasy. So I like learned how to tried learning like how the violins work and how to pair it with everything and the brass. So like when I get on that, you just sit there for hours just programming, which is also awesome. Like I think that's a really cool thing about being a musician these days. Is like where back in the day, if you had this idea for an orchestra, like you would never be able to flesh it out and hear it,
No,
unless you had a ton of money.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because if it wasn't for the advancement in technology, I definitely wouldn't be able to get a lot of the sounds that I get and be able to convey the message that I hear in my head. I don't know if I'm missing it, but do you have a MIDI keyboard?
We do, yeah.
I was gonna say, that will
baby
help.
One, but
that thing. I was looking at that earlier. Because that helped me out a lot, getting a MIDI keyboard. Yeah. Because a lot of the times I would write it out on guitar. Like I would actually, for the swing section, or the prior sections, like a surf section, sounds like surf music, I had written it on guitar. And so then I'd go out and I'd program the MIDI, and then I'd pick my instruments. But now it makes it so much easier because now I feel like I have to try harder on piano and maybe I'll come up with something different because it's not like guitar anymore, where I already know where all my notes are and what sounds good, that I have to try a little harder when I'm doing the piano. So it's like stretching your mind, and I just think progress in any way is good progress.
For sure. It's definitely, I always talk about how it's crazy, just the things that you can do now, and we have like these things that cost, everything that I have would have been $50,000 back in the day, and now it's just you have it, and so that's really cool. So I think it truly is remarkable that I did the last two Griever records at my house. It's something that you couldn't have even imagined doing unless you had a lot of studio equipment, even in the early 90s. And we've progressed so far. And we've learned so much. I think technology has really benefited us. I think it certainly can take away from certain aspects of music and writing music and learning instruments, but I definitely think it has benefited me. So I'm sure it's benefited you, and I'm sure it's benefited a lot of musicians. And I think retaining, like, just understanding it's kind of like what you're saying. Everybody has their own process, and anybody creating music, that's great. But retaining, like, the grind of things, always in a sense, and not trying to, not play your instrument to do something. That's one thing I actually have to catch myself is, like, practice, because it's so easy to like, just get distracted with other things. And so I feel like that all ties back into, that's one thing that I've always, like, tying it back to like video games, is I feel like Final Fantasy, just RPGs in general, like really helped set it feels good when you work for something, and those
yes,
and so
I agree.
Like that's just, one thing that I've always gotten from it, and it is a thing that I miss from the newer games because they are really easy. I'm sure you never played Final Fantasy 11.
No.
It was the online one.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I've never played it.
It was the hardest game, like just incredibly difficult, and it was awesome. I remember falling in love as a kid because I had to be like 10 or something when that came out, maybe even younger, and it was just an incredible grind the entire game. But it felt so good. I remember hitting like level 40, and you get these keys to go get on an airship, and it's just, this is after days of gameplay and stuff, and it felt awesome. And then Final Fantasy 14 came out, which is the other online one, and obviously I was looking to try to rekindle that, and it's just so easy. Like, I mean, I shouldn't say it's easy, like there's definitely difficult things about it, but it didn't have the grind aspect, because in 11 you had to sit outside of just like a place where you wanted to grind and just shout and try to find other real people, you know, to play with you and get somebody to be your in your party. And like they took that away from 14. That was my favorite aspect of 11, was getting to know all these people and just sitting there for, I mean, you would sit there for hours just fighting monsters, and there's just always these good feelings.
Yeah, and grinding, like we've already talked about, grinding was one of my favorite parts of playing the game. And I used to play games with myself where I would start here and I would run and I would see how far I could get before I get into an encounter, and like I would almost like celebrate with myself if I got from one part of the room to the other. Like when we get an item box, I was like, if I don't get into a fight here, I can do this or something. Just some really silly things. But even the newer games I've heard, they turn the encounters off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, are you gonna get Final Fantasy 8 on the Switch?
Maybe.
Because they have all of those things where you can shut the encounters off. You can always have your HP max and 3 times speed. And then the PC version has where you get like all of the items instantly and everything's maxed. And
it just makes me so disinterested.
Just don't push the buttons. It's a good test as well. Because that was kind of my thing. Because I just got it. I haven't played 8 since I had it on the PS3. And so the last time I played it was when I was 17. And so I've been waiting, and I'm incredibly excited. But I was like, I'm not going to push the buttons. Like, that's just...
Man, I was appalled when I heard about all of that. I don't know if I'm if I'm an elitist when it comes to it, or I'm a snob. I just feel like it just... And I have to remind myself that even though they're remaking these games, these masterpieces of games that we fell in love with, they have to cater it to the market, the audience. Like, they're definitely going to sell the games to people who fell in love with them, but this new market of kids who might be experiencing it for the first time, they know that these kids are probably not going to want to sit and spend 3 months on a game.
Right.
And a good example is in-game purchases.
Yeah.
When you can buy stuff with real money.
I know.
That you would have gotten in the game by playing the game.
Yeah.
And I don't have any new games, but I know there's a whole thing with EA, and then people being upset on Reddit about this.
Just put in legit slot machines into the NBA 2K20 or something like that. It's like gambling pretty much, and they're like getting these kids, but it's a huge cash grab for the companies, and people do it because they lost interest in grinding, and it's easier to buy something. That's why I never play mobile games, because it legitimately does not allow you to grind to get those things. You have to buy them,
yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of where I am okay with not moving forward. I mean, when I played Breath of the Wild, I bought the DLC because the game's so good. I want to keep playing. Did you beat the DLC?
I didn't get the DLC for it. I had it on the Wii U, and then I lost my gamepad. So
Breath of the Wild was on the Wii U? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It was a cross-gen for that, so I had it on the Wii U, and it was cool. I mean, like, because you had which I guess it would probably be this... No. Yeah, so the gamepad was actually, like, your map and everything, and so that was cool on that.
Yeah, so the DLC was actually a lot of fun. It was really difficult too.
Yeah.
The DLC, you got an extra shrine. Well, you got four extra shrines, or maybe 16 extra shrines, I think, and then you got an extra divine beast. So it was totally worth it. If you
that's cool. Yeah, no, I need to get a Switch. That's kind of my next thing that I want to buy, and then PS5 and everything's coming out soon, as well. And but it's funny because oh man, I can't believe I'm gonna forget the name of this game. It was on the Nintendo DS, and it was pretty much old school Final Fantasy.
Was it Golden Sun?
No,
That was on Nintendo. That was on Game Boy.
Yeah, it was on like the 3DS. I cannot believe it's just because the podcast is on and so. But it was received Bravely Default.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, it's voice acted and everything, but it had like the sprites and everything. I mean, they're a little anime, kind of like how they redid Final Fantasy 3 on the DS. It kind of had that, but the art style was awesome. It was turn based. The battle system was so good, and it was received incredibly well. And they always talk about like these turn-based games are dead. And then Persona 5. I don't know if you ever played the Persona series.
No, but everyone tells me they're in love with it.
Yeah, Persona 5 was, I mean, so good. And
see, that's what I keep hearing. I've heard it from every person that's ever told me that they played it. Was their favorite, one of their favorite games of all time.
It was just awesome to play like a real JRPG on the PlayStation 4, because I don't really play games too much anymore. Like I played God of War, and I thought that game was incredible, but Persona 5 was like one of the big highlights for me on the PS4. And it's just funny because they always talk about these, like they have to be all modern and everything, but these games still do well.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have their market, but I guess it's not as profitable as like Final Fantasy 15 went action.
Yeah,
and that was very hard on me, and it was so easy. Like it goes back to what you're talking about. Like it was just incredibly easy. Even the super bosses were like not incredibly hard.
Yeah. Do you think kids are gonna want to sit and cast Knights of the Round 200 times?
Yeah, right.
Just mime it, and you just have to sit there and watch it, and then just hope the last one you do kills underwater weapon or kills ruby weapon.
Yeah.
God, there was something that we were just talking about just then that just slipped my mind that I don't know if it was the instant gratification thing, but I feel like we really have moved away from the immersive story, but everything these days it's instant gratification.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't technology, especially video games, move in that direction? I deal with it on a daily basis. I work in a medical clinic. People hand me their ID. Immediately after they hand me their ID, they're in their phone.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't have waited until we were done with our interaction to pick your phone back up. So it just kind of shows me where the world is headed and the attention span of people, and having to always have a screen in front of their face at all times.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense that the world is that way now with video games.
I'm hoping that there's kind of a resurgence and everything. I was really happy with like Final Fantasy VII Remake, because it's action based ish, but once your ATB fills up, you go into turn based mode, and that's how you do all your materia and everything. And I thought that was cool that they put that in there for the people who liked the original and stuff, but you don't have to use it, and I imagine most people probably won't, and that sucks. And they'll probably have data on that, but I can't imagine Final Fantasy ever going back to turn-based or anything. But
something that I saw recently that it really just makes me not want to play new games. I was watching someone play the Switch, and they were playing the old Super Mario, the first one, and they fell and died, and then they just rewinded the screen.
Oh, really?
And went back. And went back like a VCR, pushing rewind, went back to before they fell, and then kept going. And I thought to myself, no wonder no one's patient anymore.
Yeah, for real though. Like, It is crazy. But like I said, like I imagine the next generation is gonna find their way in something, and it's just gonna be something that, you know, as our parents probably think of us, we're probably a little bit more instant gratification and always kind of move that way. But just now technology's changing so fast that we're seeing it happen a lot, a lot quicker. And it's like 10 years ago, like smartphones, I didn't have a smartphone 10 years ago, and like just in 10 years how it's taken over.
Oh yeah, I do everything. I remember trying to get rid of my phone once and didn't realize that paid all my bills and did everything from my phone, and that as much as I love it, I don't even have the social media apps. I have the Messenger. That's how we were talking. That's the only thing I keep because it helps me stay in touch with band members or anything. But I don't have Instagram or Facebook on my phone. So I'm just not into social media. It's a whole conversation for a different day. I think it's a plague. But
we went over that,
yeah, and so I realize that I do use my phone for everything, but the last thing I want to use it for is something like social media, unless I have to. But unfortunately, playing music, just like it is a necessary evil.
Yeah, I was thinking about that at the show. We just had a show, and I'm so bad at taking pictures, and I hate kind of like having to stop myself from being, in the moment to be like, all right guys, let's take a picture. And it's something, and it sucks because like I really, for trying to pursue music and going, doing it for life, like it's kind of because people want to be involved with you and see everything you're doing, and we are so bad at it because like it's just one thing I've never really liked doing is sharing, just come be a part of it, more than like having to post on Instagram stories and everything.
Sure.
But I do marketing as well online for like other companies, not just for the band. But yeah, that just kind of goes into the social media thing. But you're just you are monetized, like that's why Facebook's free, and so it's just kind of wild to see the flip side of it, and it's awesome for marketing, because you can target people based off whatever they like, and it's incredibly detailed, and so it's really cool for that. But it's just wild that because you share everything about yourself, so it's really easy to target you, and it's just interesting that people share everything.
Yeah,
as I'm filming something our conversation, but you know.
Sure, no, and I'm very selective with what I put on social media. Now, my girlfriend I posted about her on my social media only because she also owns her own business, and she and I both care about our art so much and realize that we have to be some sort of presence when it comes to social media. There's no way around it.
Right.
This is your medium. This is the way you're going to target your audience. Now you can do flyers. The flyers aren't going to be as impactful as social media posts or making pages or anything are going to be anymore. And so the only reason I would post about her is because she does her own business and we're pursuing the same things together. And then I post about my music. But other than that, I will never take a selfie. I will never just post about my food, or I will never post a political opinion or degrade someone or post my feelings on social media. I just think it's such a convoluted mess of narcissism.
Yeah.
And that we have to have attention from other people at all times.
For sure. And it's such a, I fell very prey to it when we ran our first music video. Because that was when I first started getting into Facebook marketing, and I boosted on Facebook, and like the engagement was shit, but the view count was going up, and it's just this endorphin, and so just like if you're paid, everything gets likes, and I had to really step back and let the ego go, because you start thinking like I have to get likes, and it is crazy. Like,
so I'm glad you made that point up. When it comes to music, and I apply this to all aspects of my life, is letting go. Just let go and don't have expectations on anything. Just let things play out the way they're supposed to play out. Especially with music, just like when I write music, just let it flow. Just let it do what it's going to do. If I post a video, of course I'm going to feel better about it if it gets a lot of views and a lot of engagements, because that's my art.
Right.
Because I'm sharing my art with you, and I hope
yourself.
I hope you enjoy it the way I do. And so getting engagements really makes you feel positive about what you did. So I will say I fall into that as well, because it's our art and we enjoy what we do so much that we want other people to express that with us. But I find that any aspect of anything, if I make a video and I'm really bad about it, because at one point I was doing a lot and I thought, I have to kind of stay relevant if I want to do music. And it felt good to get engagements. But I've just decided that if I post a video, just let it go. If it gets some views, it gets some views. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's just enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, it's pointless.
Yeah, definitely. That was kind of my thing. Like when we started doing the podcast and stuff, I was like, I just want to do something consistently for a year and not care about because I feel like people just quit things because you're not getting the reaction that you want or something. And so that was kind of like my thing. It's like, I just want to be consistent and not care so much about, we're not getting thousands of views yet and we're 3 weeks in, or something like that.
And I was really flattered that you even wanted to.
Yeah, definitely.
Do this with me. So,
like I said, you and I Griever and Yugen were like the two big ones that I really wanted. Like I just truly enjoy your guys' music, and it's cool to have you here just to connect on like a different level than music too. So
no, it's awesome. That's and I'm sorry it took so long. I didn't want to seem disinterested or anything like that, but life sometimes gets so hectic. And then I was like, nothing's going wrong. And I told Sharon, I said, all right, I have this podcast. I've been pulling this guy off for so long. I'm going over there tonight. And it was perfect because you're actually not too far from where I live. I live in Hendersonville. So I'm glad we were able to connect. And it's very few and far between that I enjoy talking about Final Fantasy with people, because people tend to enjoy the newer ones.
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost, I've never played Final Fantasy in front of people before.
Oh, really?
I think I've played it.
Never played it with Sharon?
Okay, so there was adult substances being taken, and so a little inebriation going on, and I was like, Sharon, you should see the end of these games. And
yeah,
they're incredible. So I popped in 7, 8, 9, and I just went to I have so many save files. Like in 7, I have a save file right before Ares. You go into the temple and you lose Ares for the rest of the game, but I have her at her Great Gospel, her Limit Break, and her Final Weapon. So I have a save point for that, and then I have a save point at the end of the game. And so I was like, you should see what it looks like when I beat these games. So I go in and fight Sephiroth at the end of 7 and do 4 times cut on him twice, and he's dead.
Yeah.
So
it's always the best is when you're like, this is how good I am.
It's so funny, and it's because at that point I've progressed so much in that game that I had to slow down when I fight bosses.
Yeah.
That I have to take my time and enjoy it, because if I go too hard on it, then I just eliminate them. But it's interesting to have gone back and showed someone who's never played them, like just looking at Final Fantasy VIII, the end of it is its own acid trip in itself.
The ending to that game is so wild, and it's awesome, and I love the story to 8. Like, I think it's super cool.
Just imagine making those graphics and being like, you know what? Let's do it like this. And then, like, look what I have been working all night on.
Yeah.
Just like, this is the end of the game when you beat Ultimisia.
Yeah.
And she just explodes, and these colors are everywhere.
Yeah. I can only imagine what it was like for her seeing that, and then, like, going to Adia and Sid, like, through that whole section and seeing all the time skips and everything at the end is very wild. So, or is that right before the end when Squall? Yeah, it's
Toxedia, and because he's like traveling through time.
Yeah, he's going through. Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited to replay this game.
It's the best one.
It is
by far.
I love it.
I say by far, but 9 is incredible too. 9 really touched me on a deep level because it was almost reminiscent of the childlike aspects of Final Fantasy. Because 6 was... Did you play 6? Mm-hmm. 6 was just funny.
Yeah.
Like, Kefka was an idiot.
Yeah.
But he cracked me up. Like, with this dialogue, how they would write noises and words out, and you'd have to just say them in your head, and it would just be so silly, and they'd make jokes all the time. And 9 was kind of the same way. 8 was more on the serious kind of storyline. It had its funny moments.
Right.
But 9 got that childlike aspect again, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. I loved 6 though as well. That was the first one that I actually beat of the like Nintendo ones, and I thought the story was really good in that. I actually haven't never beat 1 through 5. Like, those are the ones that I have. I've played most of them. Like I said, I played 1 on my phone, but it's hard for me to play on my phone for some reason. Like, I'd like a controller. But 6 was like, I just thought the story was really cool with just the separation of God, slipping my mind, but of the, oh my gosh, Terra's, because she's half ancient, like, not ancient, but and I love, like, just the story of separating where humans can't be in contact with them and all these issues, and the ending of that game's really cool too.
Oh, the floating continent.
Yeah.
And there's a monster on the floating continent that's really, really hard, and he's an optional boss too. I can't think of the monster, but 6 I thought shared a lot of similarities to 7.
Yeah.
Like Celeste and Eris, I thought were really similar. And then the opera, like the first couple of notes of Eris' theme and the opera song are the same.
Oh, really?
If you go back and listen, maybe we'll go back and listen now, but
yeah.
6 was incredible.
We didn't even really get a deep dive into the music and everything, so I wanted to talk about all that, because one of my favorite things is 10's probably the most prevalent one that I know, but what the end of the game, he takes the melodies from many different songs and kind of compiles them like to Xanarkand, and then the Hymn of the Faith and stuff, and the end of the game is just this big epic. That's always been like recurring melodies and stuff across songs. I always think that's really cool.
That's I will say to Xanarkand is really good.
Yeah.
I do like that song a lot. I would listen to acoustic versions or piano versions of it, because I thought it was a really well composed song, and I'm pretty sure it's by Nobuo. Yeah. So but that's in I, Griever, I do that a lot too. Motifs, like in Zone 3. Well, in Zone 3, there's a touch on 2 different songs. There's a part where it all drops out, and it's a synth, and that's touching back on Lunar Pandemonium from the second, but it's a different phrasing of that. And then I did the exact same thing at the end, where I used the main riff from I Wanna Die at the very end from I, Griever 1. So I do motifs a lot, and I do that because of Final Fantasy. It does it so much. And so moving forward, I think what I'm going to do is, because the end credits always had a combination of all the songs together, I think the next release I do, one of those songs is going to be a mashup of all the music from the prior 3 somehow orchestrated together to work.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I hope I can pull it off. We'll see if I can pull it off.
For sure. But, man, it's just about to die, but I could definitely keep going on. But
I just appreciate you having me.
Dude, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome. We'll have to do another. We'll try to get Jacob on, and anybody else who likes Final Fantasy, and just have like another big like talk about it and everything. I'm always down for something like that.
I've never had a group Final Fantasy discussion, but
that would be fun.
With you.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's just a big part of me, and that's why it was just so exciting to learn about this moving here and hearing about you. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah,
because it's the biggest influence in my life, and music is my life, and so Final Fantasy influences every aspect of music. So I get it.
Yeah,
totally,
for sure. But all right, well, that is a wrap. So thank you again so much.
Thank you.
So, did you want to shout out? There was 2 things I wrote that you should shout out. Well, you already did the Integrum Digital, and then Twin Elements. That's it, right?
Yes. So my girlfriend, she owns two businesses that she has. She is a licensed massage therapist, and she also created this product line called Twin Elements, which are right now she's working on roll-ons that contain all organic materials, and they have essential oils and CBD. So it's really concentrated on the infusion of CBD for stress relief, for healing properties. And so she created a line of these salts that were bath salts that were specified to different needs for people that were CBD infused, that were really, really cool. And I have the honor of helping her with her company.
That's crazy.
And I get to write her music for her videos and stuff. So if she has music in her videos, it's because I got to write all that music. And,
Hell yeah.
And I even take Final Fantasy influences and put it in her music. It's very more like mainstream sounding, but I get to throw my little pieces in there. But she's incredible, and
creating your own line of products, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so she's so supportive of what I do musically. So I'm only privileged and honored to get to kind of return the favor with her. So yeah, she's incredible. But her Twin Elements is her product line company that she did with a lot of CBD infused healing products, the salts, and then she'll have roll-ons and creams and lotions and things like that. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I will definitely link it in the description, and every other thing that you have.
I appreciate it.
People check it out, so for sure. All right, that's it.